But right now, we're going to talk to Afua Adom, who's a journalist and broadcaster, about the latest on the George Floyd murder trial. It formally started yesterday. It's, of course, the trial of Derek Chauvin, the police officer who knelt, we've had for 8 minutes and 46 seconds on the neck of George Floyd, causing him to die. He is on trial for second-degree murder and manslaughter and third-degree murder in relation to the death. The most serious charge there is punishable by up to 40 years in jail. But yesterday we learned that actually he knelt on George Floyd's neck for even longer. Afua, the opening statements gave an awful lot away about how this case is going to be prosecuted and how it's going to be defended, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it did give us a lot of information actually, and it did give us a lot away. Like you said so rightly there, Julia, it was actually 9 minutes and 29 seconds that George Floyd was on the floor there. The jurors saw the full video. They saw some new video as well, some new angles, some taken by passers-by, some taken by CCTV. We heard from a dispatcher who said that she was monitoring other calls, but she had the video of what was happening to George Floyd on her screen, and he was on the ground and still for so long she actually thought that the screen had frozen, that the picture had frozen, and she called the police on the police. So that shows you how long he was on the ground for and how long he was still for. We had some witness testimony as well saying that George Floyd, that we know, was saying that he couldn't breathe, that he was calling for his mother 27 times. He was exclaiming that he was in trouble, and then for a long time actually that he was silent. So the prosecution say that if Derek Chauvin and George Floyd hadn't crossed paths, quite simply, that George Floyd would be alive today. But the defense saying that George Floyd had underlying health issues, hypertension, a heart condition, and a few other things going on with him that meant that he would have died anyway. And that's what they're trying to disprove. And there's been 2 different autopsies done, a private one done by the prosecution, a state one done by the defense. And it's going to be on that information. It's really going to be what the case hinges on.
Well, indeed, and again, you say it's 929 is what the prosecution was saying. There's a crucial number, the reference to 9 minutes and 29 seconds, because that's the CCTV image showing that actually the video footage we've all seen and sparked protests around the world, and all the demonstrations, Black Lives Matter demonstrations. After that was just a video that only happened to show 8 minutes and 46 seconds of that horrific situation. Now, I mean, I think for a lot of us looking at this, it seems to be, frankly, a cut and dried case. I mean, we've seen the video. This isn't a he said, she said. It's not some sort of biased witnesses. Oh, well, they would say that, or we are talking about. We've all seen it for ourselves. It is horrific to watch even 10 seconds of that video, let alone the all 9 minutes 29 seconds that was shown to the court yesterday. And to hear this man crying out now. A lot of this, though, is going to come down to perceptions of George Floyd. Now, he wasn't a very nice guy. Let's not pretend that he was a saint. He's trying to be sanctified by us, but this isn't a trial of George Floyd. He was a convicted criminal. We know he had amphetamines in his bloodstream and all of that. But that is going to be very much pushed in this case, isn't it, by the defence? But actually, it doesn't matter whether George Floyd was the best man in the world or the worst man in the world. This is a question of what was it appropriate and acceptable for Derek Chauvin to do and the other police officers who stood by and watched him do it.
You're absolutely right. This is not the trial of George Floyd. This is the trial of Derek Chauvin. And you're absolutely right in saying that people are going to talk about George Floyd's character, what he did or did not do, but it's frankly not about that. What it is about the use of force that Derek Chauvin used against George Floyd in that arrest. Now, Derek Chauvin actually had a long history over his police career of using excessive force. And it's that phrase, excessive force. In this case, it absolutely wasn't necessary because George Floyd was not struggling.
He was handcuffed, lying on the ground with another 3 police officers with him. Yeah.
And so there was no need for Derek Chauvin to use that amount of force.
But he's claimed, has he not, his defendants claimed that this was actually a technique that had been taught to him and was sort of standard technique for the police.
And that's what he's saying, definitely, that he's used this knee on the neck use of force before, and he'd used it over his career, and there'd been complaints against him over his career for him using this use of force. Now, this is also a problem within the Minnesota Police Department. If you're teaching your police officers this excessive use of force, and like I say, it is about the excessive use of force in this arrest, and they've been taught to do that, then that is a fundamental problem. That if you're going to go around using this much force to make an arrest, then there's a problem within the police department.
Indeed. And again, as we heard with one of the witnesses yesterday, who's actually themselves a wrestler, this was a wrestle hold effectively, and he's actually on camera shouting to police officers, "You need to check for a pulse. You need to, this guy can't breathe." Rev Al Sharpton, a prominent civil rights leader for decades and decades now, he joined the family of George Floyd yesterday for very, very long interviews, and also a taking of the knee for the time that that George Floyd was knelt on by the police officer. But he said yesterday, the criminal justice system is on trial. He said Chauvin is in the courtroom, but America is on trial. And this is the issue here, isn't it? It's just that it's the idea that if this was a white victim, that there's no doubt at all this would be cleared, there'd be a guilty plea by now probably, would be the argument. And that it's because this is a black victim, again and again and again, we have seen police getting off, even when everything is on video like this, often with largely white juries, and that actually it's the criminal justice system, it's the policing of America that is on trial. And that is true, isn't it? If there is a not guilty verdict here, I mean, frankly, I would be boarding up my house and taking cover if I lived in America.
Look, this is absolutely right, that this is a trial of the justice system, of the police force in America. Now, in Minnesota, over the past 20 years, you've had 200 people who have died at the hands of the police. Now, 7% of people who live in Minnesota are black, but 26% of those people who've died at the hands of the police have been black. So this shows that there's disproportionate killings by the police of black people. We have had trials in the past of so many people who have been killed by the police force in America. And as we very well know, George Zimmerman is one of them. We know that acquittals are common. Now, in this instance, if this trial ends up with the acquittal of Derek Chauvin, then it shows that, and it will show America, and it will show the world that, in fact, black lives don't matter when it comes to the police. Okay, now, this is an opportunity for the American justice system, for the American police force to do what is right and to convict in this case. Because like you so rightly said, we've seen it on video. It looks cut and dried, and it is cut and dried.
Well, we shall have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what evidence is brought up. I have to say, I can't see right now how he wouldn't be cut and dried, but we will have to wait and see, let justice run its course, and then see, well, whether it is justice or not.